Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're taking this absolutely fascinating journey right into the human mind, specifically looking at the groundbreaking work of Dr. Judson Brewer. His insights into the mechanics of anxiety are literally eye-opening. We're going to uncover exactly how our brains get trapped in these endless, exhausting cycles of worry, stress, and overthinking. But more importantly, we're going to explore the concrete, science-backed steps you can actually take to break free from that cycle for good.
Okay, let's dive right in by validating a feeling I think we all share right now. Why does it feel like anxiety is just everywhere? It's actually not a brand new problem. Even historical figures like Thomas Jefferson wrote extensively about having relentless worries. But if we fast forward to the modern era, and specifically that massive spike in psychological stress triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic, we find ourselves dealing with this unprecedented global wave of generalized anxiety. It feels heavy, it feels constant, and honestly, it feels like everybody is carrying it around.
Here is our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover Section 1, Anxiety as the Virus of the Modern Age. Section 2, the difference between fear and anxiety. Section 3, Understanding the Habit Loop. Section 4, How the Brain Gets Fooled. Section 5, The Bigger, Better Offer. And finally, Section 6, Curiosity as the Enemy of Anxiety. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Anxiety, the virus of the modern age. We're starting off by framing anxiety not just as a clinical medical disease, but as a widespread behavioral phenomenon that sneaks into varying levels of our daily lives. It's something we all do, sometimes without even realizing it.
Anxiety really operates on this massive sliding spectrum. Dr. Brewer highlights this using some very personal examples that hit close to home. He talks about his wife, Mahari, who experiences this sort of chronic, low-level hum of anxiety just playing in the background of her life. But then on the other extreme, his friend Emily suffers from paralyzing, severe panic attacks. Brewer even shares his own story from his days at Princeton. He was doing so much, constantly on the go, that he actually developed physical health issues from stress, all while completely denying he was even anxious. And of course, the recent global pandemic has only acted as an amplifier, pushing so many people's everyday worries into full-blown generalized anxiety.
Moving to Section 2. The difference between fear and anxiety. What's really fascinating here is how we have to separate a highly useful evolutionary survival tool from the totally unhelpful, draining modern trap of overthinking. We use the words interchangeably all the time, right? But to your brain, they are completely different.
Think about the contrast. Fear is a pure evolutionary adaptation. If you're walking in the woods and you suddenly see a bear, that surge of fear is a healthy, life-saving response to a very clear, present danger. It gets you ready to fight or run for your life. Anxiety, on the other hand, pops up when there is a lack of concrete information. It is totally driven by that endless loop of what if or what might happen tomorrow. While our brains adapted beautifully to quickly respond to real physical threats, today's constant stream of uncertainties twists that healthy fear into chronic, speculative anxiety.
Section 3, The Habit Loop and Understanding the Mechanism. Now let's see how these occasional, speculative worries actually turn into a deeply ingrained addiction. Because yes, wild as it sounds, we can absolutely become addicted to our own anxiety. It all starts right here, with the trigger. And by defining this trigger, we really empower ourselves to start mapping out the very first domino that falls in our daily anxiety cycle. Now, a trigger can be external, like, say, your boss giving you harsh feedback, or it can be completely internal, just a random feeling of boredom, a sudden pang of uncertainty, or even just asking yourself that incredibly dangerous question, well, what if?
So the absolutely crucial point to grasp is that anxiety operates as a mechanical loop. Step 1 is that trigger we just talked about. Step 2 is the behavior. When we feel stressed, we might start overthinking, worrying obsessively, or just mindlessly scrolling through social media. And step 3 is the reward. Now, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, worrying does not feel like a reward. But to your brain, doing something, even if it's just worrying, gives you this illusion of control. Scrolling on your phone gives a brief distraction. The brain mistakenly believes these behaviors are solving the problem, simply because they offer a fleeting moment of temporary relief.
Section 4. How the Brain is Fooled. We're now going to examine the chemical culprit behind this addictive loop and find out exactly why our brains keep repeating behaviors that ultimately harm us and make our anxiety so much worse in the long run.
The main culprit here? Dopamine. It acts as the brain's primary motivation chemical. Our brains are basically hardwired to seek out quick rewards. Dr. Brewer references Dana Small's chocolate experiment, which shows how eating a piece of chocolate literally lights up the brain's reward centers, making us instantly crave more.
Well, everyday habits like online shopping, clicking on clickbait, or getting a like on social media exploit this exact same dopamine system. Brewer shares this fascinating clinical case of a patient named John. John's trigger was stress, his behavior, drinking and procrastinating. The reward was temporary relief. But the tragic deception of the brain is that while dopamine gives you a quick hit of comfort, the underlying anxiety is actually growing stronger in the background.
Section 5. The bigger, better offer. Because the brain is always comparing options and seeking out the strongest possible reward, we have to find a clever way to outsmart our own dopamine system. We literally can't just tell our brains to stop.
Okay, so let's dive into the solution. And it is beautifully simple, but highly effective. You cannot just forcefully stop worrying. Think about it. If you tell yourself, don't think about a pink elephant, what do you immediately think about? The pink elephant. Your brain needs a superior alternative, what Brewer calls the bigger, better offer. You have to introduce a new habit that feels inherently better and more rewarding, which will naturally just push that old anxious habit right out of the way.
Which brings us to Section 6, Curiosity, the enemy of anxiety. This is the ultimate science-backed cure for our modern epidemic. And the best part? It doesn't involve expensive gadgets or complicated routines. It just involves utilizing your mind's incredible, natural capacity for curiosity.
Think about the sheer calm and openness of this concept. Anxiety is fundamentally about trying to control the uncontrollable, right? Which just makes us tight and frantic. But replacing that frantic urge to control with mindful, gentle observation, essentially curiosity, creates a brand new, super healthy dopamine pathway in the brain. Curiosity actually feels good. It feels expansive instead of restrictive.
It's entirely about shifting your internal dialogue. When we're stuck in an anxiety loop, we are constantly asking, when will this horrible feeling end? That is a fear-based question. But if you shift that to, what am I learning right now? What does this anxiety actually feel like in my body? You completely transition from seeking a desperate escape to seeking understanding. And that simple little pivot opens the door to completely rewiring your neural pathways.
And this brings us to our final takeaway, the incredibly simple power of asking why. When you feel that tightness in your chest, ask why. Not to judge yourself, not to beat yourself up for feeling anxious, but purely as a scientist mapping out a loop. Just observing your own mind disarms your fight-or-flight response. It acts as the ultimate circuit breaker.
So I want to leave you with this single, provocative tool. It is the absolute greatest, bigger, better offer you can possibly give your brain. The next time you feel triggered, the next time you feel that heavy urge to spiral into worry or reach for your phone just to numb the stress, pause. Be curious. Ask yourself this gentle question: why am I feeling this way right now? Just observe the feeling without trying to fix it. If you can do that, you'll start to watch that anxiety loop slowly unwind. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this topic. Keep staying curious, and I'll see you next time.